We are back here, and we are back with the great Batya Ungar-Sargon. Batya, how are you doing today?
Good, thank God. How are you?
I am doing all right. Well, I had to bring you on. There's this little story, it's not getting a lot of attention. It's kind of flying under the radar. But, we're both kind of wonks here, politicos, and so we've been keeping an eye on. There's a little situation going on in Iran. I don't know. I don't know if the audience is keeping tabs on this. What is your assessment thus far? There's so many different angles we can go, but I guess if you kind of give your reaction to this whole situation so far, I know it's a very big question to ask, but
I'm almost struggling to talk about it because I think the achievement of the Trump administration is so enormous that you sound crazy when you try to explain it. He's basically playing a massive game of Risk, a
mhm,
global game. And Iran is just the latest piece of that.
mhm.
But to me, I mean, obviously, getting rid of the Ayatollah Khomeini, who wants every American dead, let's just be clear, or wanted while he was alive, is a noble, noble goal. It's hilarious because the Democrats even will admit this. They'll be like, well, of course we support getting rid of him, just not now. And it's like, I mean, most goals that are, objectively noble, you should do them whenever you can, right?
Yeah.
So that was like good in of itself. But to me, that's almost the sideshow in terms of the achievement here, because to me, this war is really about China
Mm.
and the way that the president has completely rewritten the entire global world order to put us back on top in a way that I did not think was possible.
Mhm.
And when you look at what he's done over the past year, you start to see how the puzzle pieces kind of came together. So he started with the Panama Canal. And I remember when he started talking about that, I was like, why does he even care
Yeah.
about this? Like, who
Yeah.
is even thinking about this? But you see now how that was the first step in reasserting control over all of the oil choke points
Mhm.
across the globe. He then did Venezuela. He removed Maduro. He left Dulce Rodriguez in charge, which at the time, all the liberals were like, well, why not give it over to Maria Machado? She's the Western choice. She loves the West. No, he said, why would I do that so that the generals will all revolt? No, I'm going to keep her there. She's going to be unbelievably grateful to me. We're going to work together to take all of this oil that, by the way, it wasn't just that China was getting all of this cheap oil from Venezuela, which it was at, $15 below market rate a barrel, but that China had lent Venezuela $100 billion, which was being paid back in oil.
Mhm.
Now that oil is going to the free market at market rate. So if China wants to buy it, it's going to cost it even more, and it's going
Yeah.
to have to buy it. So it lost $100 billion off of that bet. Like, it just, the sheer magnitude of the way in which Trump has humiliated the Chinese, who had spent the last 5 years telling everybody that the West was over, the United States is over. We're in a multipolar world now. Trump was like, bitch, no. Like, this is our universe. This is our century. This is our world.
Mhm.
And now, of course, he goes into Iran. He removes the Ayatollah. He destroys their navy. He asserts aerial command in 2 days. I mean, like, just the sheer magnitude of this is astonishing. And now what he did was he isolated China from another 20% of its oil.
Mm.
China is now telling all of its refineries no exporting any gas or diesel. Okay, they're desperate. They have not harassed Taiwan since February 27th, the
Mhm.
first time in years that
Mm.
that has happened.
It's
They
interesting.
can't afford to take Taiwan anymore. They just don't have the oil to do it. I mean, astonishing achievement on so many levels. And it's just so funny to hear these nincompoops being like, this is Israel's war. Like,
Mhm.
it's so ridiculous. This has nothing to do with Israel. I mean, they're doing us a massive favor. They're helping us a lot. They killed the people who tried to assassinate our president, which in a normal universe would be like, thanks, that's
Yeah.
really nice of you, like, much appreciated.
Mhm.
But like the actual achievement here, it just goes so far beyond the massive achievement of eliminating the number one state sponsor of terrorism.
Mhm.
And I just one more point, which is people keep saying like, oh, this is another Iraq. We're going to get bogged down. That may be true. I mean, we may get bogged down. I would not support that. I mean, if it goes on more than 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I will be very, very critical of
Yeah.
this. I don't think that is likely to happen, given everything I know about Donald Trump. His foreign policy is not designed to make us poorer. It's designed to make us richer.
Mhm.
And that's why I think this is going to be very quick. And also why I think he's being so smart in refusing to say, well, we're going to insist on this kind of a government or that kind of a government. If you notice, like, he keeps saying, well, I will choose it. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to tell you what I want ahead of time. Make an offer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, present somebody to me. The Dulce Rodriguez choice showed such a maturity that I think is
Mhm.
100% Marco Rubio, to say, like, we're not here to nation build. Like, the only
Mhm.
nation we're building is us, you know?
Yeah.
But what we are here to do is make sure that you cannot traffic drugs and gangs into our country and make your, in our hemisphere, create a landing spot for terrorists and for the Chinese, and think we're just going to take that lying down. So
Mm.
that's kind of how I'm thinking, or how I'm seeing things. It truly is just like, and again, it's like, I feel embarrassed to say what I really believe, because, like, you're not supposed to talk about politicians this way, but
Mhm.
just we were in such decline, and the watching the puzzle pieces of how Trump is thinking about restoring us as the only global superpower is just like, it's breathtaking.
Mhm.
How
Well,
do you see it?
well, yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. I do agree that, initially when I saw the people gaming out the China containment strategy with Iran, and I was a bit skeptical at first. And the reason for that, I guess, to kind of steelman the opposing position, not necessarily that Israel's like control, because obviously that's not true. Like, the idea that Trump didn't have a problem with Iran's nuclear program until, like, Bibi called, like, that's
Right.
ridiculous. But in all fairness, I guess, to steelman that position, it has been a goal of the U.S. foreign policy for quite a long time now to overthrow the Iranian regime, to really clamp down on the entire Iranian apparatus with their proxies and these sorts of things. And so that's why a lot of, I think, specifically MAGA supporters or MAGA loyalists that have been around for 10 years or so supporting the president, they kind of have two concerns. Is one, that this could be another Libya, more so than anything else. But then B, I heard this talking point from quite a few people, is they're just like, this really rewards a lot of the worst people in American politics, like your Bill Kristol types who have just been like salivating over war with Iran for quite a long time. So I understand, and I actually am growingly more sympathetic and convinced of the position that yes, there actually is a bigger geopolitical play here. But I also kind of understand what they're saying, where they're saying, well, this has been the goal of the pre-Trump GOP and by extension the Democrats for a very long time, and it is a bit concerning when we finally see it come into play.
What is so funny to me about that is you have these people like John Bolton, who this was like his wet dream
Yeah.
forever. And what's he doing? He's going on CNN and trashing Trump.
Yeah, the
Like,
Bill Kristol did the same thing too.
they
Yeah.
look like
Yeah.
such idiots. Like,
Mhm.
it's just so funny how one of Trump's superpowers is making his enemies behave in the most ridiculous,
Yeah.
ridiculous, ridiculous ways. Um, it's funny because people often say, well, if you can't have one standard for your guy and another standard for the other side. The thing is, if your guy is so much better, then you actually
Yeah.
can, right?
True. Yeah,
Like, if
facts.
John Bolton had been in charge of this, he would have sent in 200,000 American troops, right? And
Yeah,
Trump
that's
is
true.
like, no, we're going to do it from the
Yeah, we'll
skies.
just bomb them.
Like,
Yeah.
so I just think when your guy has the priorities that our guy has, it really is a different
Mhm.
concern. Now, I just want to point another thing out, which is you hear a lot like, oh, MAGA is split over Iran. Trump is losing MAGA on Iran. All right, we now have 6 polls
Yeah, that's true.
that show support among Republicans for this is 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
And for MAGA Republicans, people who identify as MAGA, it's 90% plus.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's like there's no freaking divide here. That is just a liberal fantasy because they hate Trump. There's
Mhm.
like 90% of MAGA and then 4 podcasters, and it's the same divide you saw over Midnight Hammer, the same divide,
Mhm.
in my view, you saw over the Epstein files, which, like,
Yeah, I agree.
you know,
Yeah.
influencers make a shit ton of money off of this, and so they're super into it. The MAGA base doesn't care. They have the president's back. And even in the MAGA political world, you can see immediately which politicians spend way too much time on Twitter and which ones are just out there doing the work, because
Yeah.
the ones on Twitter are obsessively misreading these like 4 podcasters and Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Yeah.
as being like, as having some sort of constituency, and they really, really don't. That's not to say that, the president can, the GOP can win the midterms without independents, and independents don't like this war. But if it's over soon, which I believe it will be,
Mm.
which I hope it will be, and if it's not, I too will have concerns with it. They will come around to it. People really don't like military action before it happens, but if it's quick and brutal and over soon, then they really come around to it.
Yeah.
I do just want to say, obviously, the 6 U.S. service members who we lost, it's unbelievably tragic.
Mhm.
But they're heroes and they're patriots, and they died defending our grandchildren from a nuclear-armed Iran, because no one would do anything about that. And I cannot believe that Donald Trump would allow them to have died in vain. It's
Yeah.
unlike most of our politicians.
Yeah, and I do agree with Rubio's calculation, which was, look, if they were going to strike us, and we kind of didn't know, we didn't have the intel or whatever, we didn't necessarily know what specific time and moment they were going to strike, we probably would have lost quite a few bit more servicemen. So I actually completely agree with Rubio's analysis. And I actually totally agree that it's really an online debate that's happening, because this has been the problem from my point of view, and I've been a Trump loyalist. I was 14 when he came down the escalator, for what that's worth. But like, I've always been a Trump guy, especially since I've been like politically
Damn
conscious.
you, young people! Your whole lives ahead of you. I hate you.
But it's so true that it's like a lot of I've seen this happening is they really almost over intellectualize Trumpism and MAGA, and they try to like sort of bake in that it's a lot more of like a convoluted political overhaul than it is in some instances. Like, yes, Trump has eliminated like 6 separate political dynasties, but at the same time, what really is the bread and butter of Trump and MAGA is actually quite simple. It's immigration and it's trade. Those are like the 2 things that Americans, his voters, that really set him over the top, that set him apart from the field. In the Republican primary, it's immigration, where he's calling balls and strikes on like the situation, and it was trade, where he was saying like, look, the NAFTA and these different trade deals that we have completely destroyed our manufacturing sector. So I think as long as he's delivering on those 2, that's where you're going to still get 90% support for pretty much every other action, because that's how you buy political capital. And again, even if I agree that if it goes beyond 4 weeks, or if gas prices really shoot through the roof, you'll probably see those approval ratings change. But I trust President Trump here. Everyone, I have some friends texting me who are, just whatever. They're kind of like mentally, I won't use the word, but they're getting tossed around by the algorithm. They're like, well, if Biden did this or Obama did this, you would hate this. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't trust them.
Exactly.
That's why, because I don't trust them to mop this up. With Trump, I have some faith. Again, it's like, aside what my opinion is on if we should have gotten involved, or it doesn't really matter. We're in it now, and so now I just have to sit back and like, just kind of trust let him cook here, for lack of a better word. I think there's something to be said about letting the president cook. And one more kind of point here is, for you and me and for everyone in the sphere, we're expected to just have like nuclear hot takes ready to go. You got to have this really strong, hard opinion. And when this all broke out, I'm like, I kind of just have to wait to see. Like, it's like, it's obvious there's a geopolitical calculation, but it's obvious there's a calculation on how we're going to deliver on domestic policy. I just need to like wait and see. Like, guys, can I get like a week to really see how this is like going? It's like, but it's tough in the game, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that question of credibility is extremely important. I'm like you. I mean, I don't know if you agree that I think we should have a complete moratorium on immigration for the next 10 years. Like, not as legal, illegal, like to the MAGA base, it doesn't really matter. It's only elites, by the way, who make that distinction. They're like, oh,
but it's the same people. So it's like, what?
I know, exactly. And he's the only politician who was willing to say that when both parties were like totally committed to open borders, and that buys you a lot of credibility.
Yeah.
And I think also, sometimes I'll like, so I was on a different, I was on my Substack doing like a live last night, and I explained exactly what we just talked about, how the president's foreign policy is really domestic policy. Like those are not separate for him. He's not like,
Yeah.
oh, we're going to do adventurism, and then like they're the one and the two sides of the same coin. If he's
Mhm.
doing something and you don't understand how that puts money in your pocket, just wait. Like you
Yeah.
said, wait a week, wait a month. You'll
Yeah.
see how it works out, right? And I think that somebody at some point said to me like, I wish the president could articulate what he was doing the way that you do. And I was like, well, the reason I think I can articulate it is because I'm thinking about the person I'm talking to. I'm thinking, okay, what are their like
Sure.
preconceived, what are their like priors? What is the thing that's getting in between them and seeing things the way that I do so that I can address those things? People who are good at doing that are not good at saying to 98% of the existing political elites and economic elites, like, screw you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he just doesn't care because he has a very clear image in his mind about how to help the American people, how to bring back American excellence, how to bring back the American dream for the hardest working Americans who have been left behind and forgotten. And you can see it on his face, like when he's at a rally and he brings up some waitress and he's like,
Mhm.
explain how no tax on tips is putting money in your pocket, or when he talks to the angel parents, like you can just see in his face, like he feels utterly identified
Mhm.
with the American people who have been left behind and forgotten and abandoned and destroyed and disinherited by the status quo on both sides. And I think that the people can just feel that. Of course, if you're in the elites, you can't. Like
Sure.
they just see it's insane how broken they are by him. But I
Mhm.
think that they've lost so much credibility and he's just accrued it.
Yeah.
So I think that things are really seem to be going really well.
We have a great, great, great sponsor for today's show. It is Rumble Wallet. Oh my gosh, we love Rumble Wallet. You may have seen the conversations happening online lately. Censorship is back and it is happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling narratives and pushing the stuff that they want us to see. We need to fight back. Rumble is the only company that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. On one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship, but now, on the other side, they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks that are shutting us off. Banks can cancel our accounts and freeze our cards, so that is exactly why Rumble has launched Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet that no one can cancel and a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like ourselves here at Timcast without any middlemen taking cuts. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. It's yours. It is only yours. It's for you and to protect you and your family, your and your future. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. You can buy and save digital assets like Bitcoin or Tether Gold in one place. Tether Gold is real gold on the blockchain with ownership of physical gold bars. It is not only a wallet to buy and save, but it also allows you to support your favorite creators by tipping them with the click of a button. There will be no fees when you tip this channel or others, and we'll actually receive the tip instantly, unlike other platforms where we have to wait for payouts. That's a game changer, quite frankly. That is a game changer. Let's be honest here. Support this show and other creators by clicking the tip button on this Rumble channel. It is wallet.rumble.com. Again, download Rumble Wallet today, open an account, and step away from the big banks for good. Wallet.rumble.com or search Rumble Wallet on the app stores. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is why he can, do a lot of these things because, again, he's just political capital. Like, people don't think of politics in terms of like, you accumulate political capital and then you spend it on things. You accumulate it and spend it here,
Right.
accumulate it and spend it there, and then it's really up to the president to determine where he can spend it. Because the more unpopular something is, the more you're going to have to expend political capital. I guess a question I would have for you, do you feel like there was any pressure on the Trump administration to conduct, an operation in Iran, removed from the geopolitical calculation that that the Trump administration may be making here? Just as far as, again, there are interests that would be interested in seeing Iran toppled, and the Saudis. I mean, everyone. This isn't like when I say this, people are like, "Oh, you're talking about Israel." I'm like, there's a lot of different people that really hate Iran. Like, it's not the world doesn't revolve around Jews, but a lot of people like think that way, and it's just, again, back to the people that are just mentally, by the algorithm. It's unfortunate. But do you think that there was sort of pre-Trump GOP pressure put on the Trump administration to conduct an operation in Iran? Because you do see people like Lindsey Graham coming out and high-fiving, and they're thrilled, and they're saying like, let's just rip it to the stud. That, to me, that does concern me a little bit when I see that again, like, a lot of really nasty people are fairly excited about this. Do you
I'll
think
tell
that's
you
yeah?
why I don't think so. I think they probably would have told him to wait till after the midterms. This is a
Mm,
huge political risk for the
sure.
GOP. And I think probably a lot of those people who are very thrilled about this probably would have urged him to wait until it was a less hazardous political time. On the Israeli side, we know that the Israelis were very caught off guard by this and asked for more time to prepare because
Mm,
they just they were, I think, a little bit surprised that he was
yeah.
like, "No, we're doing this now." There was reporting that they sort of, when he sort of started expressing interest in like this moment and this time, asked for more time to prepare. They started to get onto a war footing about 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
At which point he started to do his usual, like, psyop thing where he was saying like, no, no, we're negotiating. And I think they were negotiating in good faith. I think they did really want, he would have been very thrilled for there to have been a nuclear deal. But there was just nobody to talk to. I mean, they were just lying to their faces. And
Yeah.
so I think that the pressure narrative is really off. We know now that it was CIA, not Mossad, who knew that the Ayatollah and all of his friends were going to be kind of at that meeting in person,
Hmm.
um, which precipitated the actual attack itself. So I really don't see that at all. Like in Midnight Hammer, I think that that was very much like the Israeli intelligence and then our capabilities with the B-2 bombers.
Hmm.
Um, Here, this seems just much more like an American initiative, and like we are much more likely to be the long-term beneficiaries. For example, if Trump finds a Dulce Rodriguez in Iran,
Yeah.
the Israelis won't be thrilled about that. Like they would
Sure.
love to see like hardcore regime change. They would love to see the protesters. They would love to see some of the leadership in exile. I don't think Trump is very interested in that at all. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
he would like to see it, but not at the expense of America kind of winning the day here,
Yeah.
not at the expense of stability. And I'll just make one more point, which is that we now know that the Saudis publicly were out there saying, don't attack Iran, but that privately they had joined
Yeah.
with the Israelis
Yeah.
to urge Trump to do this. So, a changing globe, a changing world, just,
Hmm.
the foresight when you think about how, like, in order to accomplish this, you would have had to have done the Abraham Accords.
Hmm.
So we're talking 6 years ago now that he
Yeah.
was sort of putting into place the building blocks of this new global world order in which the US dominance is utterly, utterly unchallenged. The one other point I would make is people keep saying, well, if China's the real objective here, why isn't he out there bragging about it? Well, he's got a big meeting coming up with Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
And I think that he's very good at working with dictators and understanding how they operate. I think he's being very careful not to force the Chinese to get involved beyond what they would want to, because he has an idea for a way in which American dominance can actually translate into Chinese prosperity, but they have to play ball with us. And
Yeah.
so he could be out there bragging about all the leverage he has over Xi Jinping right now, or he could just use the leverage in the meeting,
Hmm.
right? And I think he's chosen the latter, which of course flies in the face of the liberal fantasy of what his character is really like. They're being very careful about what they're not saying right now, if you read between the tea leaves.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, with this geopolitical sort of pincer movement that's happening, yeah, that would be like retarded if he were to come out and say, "By the way, here's what I'm doing," and then she's like, "What? Meeting's off? Like, what's wrong with you?" Yeah. To your first point with Iran, I mean, again, I agree. It's like I think everyone in the region would love to see, a regime change, a Western, pro-Western person come in. That's just not how they operate. Like Venezuela, to your point, they keep Delcy in there because they know how long that would take and how much resources would need to
Yeah.
be expended for a full-blown, regime change. Same thing in Iran. It's like if you could just bomb this regime into moderation, where they're just like, fine, okay, we'll sign whatever you want to sign. That's a victory for
Right,
the United
right,
States.
totally.
Everyone in the region is going to be like a little upset, but it's like, who cares? It's what matters is how does this work for us? And I think if we can again force them to sign basically whatever we put in front of them, that's a W. I don't really care who's in charge,
Totally.
because we saw in Switzerland and Oman where Witkoff was like, by the way, like the one thing, you're not having a nuclear program, and that was the one thing they wanted. It was kind of obvious it was going to lead to this. Now you bring in a more moderated regime who's like afraid of, again, that we can just kill their leader whenever they want, they'll sign whatever we want. Because that was Trump when they were asking Trump like, that Reza Pahlavi guy, he seems like a
Mhm.
nice guy, but Trump's like, I don't know. Like, I kind of think we should get
He's
someone that's
so
inside.
right. He is
Yeah.
so right about that. And I'll
Yeah.
just make one more point, which
Yeah.
is people act like our endless forever counterproductive wars of regime change in the Middle East that cost us trillions of dollars and thousands of precious lives. They act like the problem with that was the regime change part, not the endless warfare, trillions of dollars, thousands of lives, and it didn't work, right? The
Yeah.
counterproductive, right? If a regime changes from from one that's anti-Western to one that's more pro-Western, that's obviously a win. If you didn't spend trillions of dollars,
Yeah.
didn't lose tens of thousands of lives, and it actually works, right?
Yeah,
So
literally. Yeah.
it's like people use this word as if it's somehow like this, Voldemort, like this like word you can't say that has in and of itself. So like that but the truth is the reason they do that, at least on the left, is because they would actually prefer Maduro to a
Sure. Yeah.
pro-Western person because they hate the West.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like, again, we're America. We can kind of just twist these people's arms, and if they refuse or if they like continue to fight back, we just black bag them in the middle of the night. I think that's pretty great. That's what makes our country great. But yeah, and then Trump was like, we'll install someone else, but like, well, with the guy we had in mind, he's dead, and then the guy we had in mind after that, he was like literally going down the list. He was like 8 people are dead. I was like, that just shows you you're really roughing up on him over there. But yeah, that's why I'm like clear. I mean, Vance has articulated this. And I think Vance is the best at framing in the entire Trump ad. He's really good at framing, and he's like, no, because if anyone's gonna be opposed to like forever wars, it's gonna be him. He's a millennial. He's a vet. Like that's the guy. And he's like, trust me, that's not what we're thinking. Like this is gonna be a couple week operation. Because it's like, if you really think we're gonna like do Afghanistan and Iran, like trust me, we know. I think anyone that's met a Persian knows democracy's probably not on the table in Iran. Like they're not, it's like it's probably not gonna happen. I love Persians, but yeah, like they're gonna like agree on things. It's not gonna happen. They like to argue, so I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon.
Although I do have to say, I think that it's probably more likely than it was in Afghanistan, just because
Well,
they
yeah,
have this kind of unifying ancient civilization
and
that's
they
been
can read.
destroyed by exactly by like the Islamic regime. And so they have this history. The question is, do they, like Venezuela, have a kind of middle class that has a muscle memory or a desire for democratic institutions? It's not really muscle memory. I guess there was a monarchy before the Islamic regime. So,
Yeah,
but you meet the people in exile, and they do seem to sort of crave this. They have this kind of unifying culture. It's not like these
mm,
sort of separate tribes that have been at war for like,
yeah,
like
yeah.
forever. But you're right. And you know what? It's just not our job. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
our.
We have our goals, and it's like that's like we can let them figure it out. Like it's not that big of a deal. I don't understand when, when everyone's all
I
freaking out.
think, you can long for freedom for people, for women in other places of the world, and also acknowledge the fundamental truth that you cannot give a people freedom. They
Yeah,
have to take it for themselves the way that we did, the way that our ancestors
yeah,
did here. And I wish them the best. I think they're so brave, and I admire them endlessly. And I just like, it's not our job to give them that. And we cannot do it. You
yeah.
fundamentally cannot give people freedom.
Well, it's the same reason I have, I'm very, skeptical on immigration and our current immigration policy. It's just like you can't change people like overnight. Like again, people have a way that they see the world. People have a way that they evaluate, that they interact with each other, and these sorts of things. I'm not saying it's inferior or superior. I'm not making any of those points. I'm just saying it's different, and it's like we need to acknowledge that it's different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not the end of the world. So I think that's really what's at play here. But I mean, to your initial point, I think regardless of anyone's concerns with Iran or whatever, I think President Trump being in charge is the best case scenario. I think everyone should be able to agree on that. So I was wondering if you had any closing thoughts, and more importantly than anything, where can people find you? Because they're going to want more.
I'm on Substack now.
Amazing.
I'm enjoying it a lot. It's new. I just started like a few weeks ago, but I've been writing every single day. So all of my thoughts, a lot of what we talked about here, I've published articles about that. I'm on Twitter, but I'm trying to spend less time there.
Fair. Same. Yeah.
I do have to say before I log off,
Yeah.
I admire Tim so much, because
Mm.
in that 90-10 distinction we were talking about before, between like the 10% who are influencers or podcasters who are against a lot of what the president has done versus the 90% of the MAGA, Tim is always on the right side of that.
Yeah.
Like he's just, even though he has all the same financial incentives, I guess,
Yeah.
as the other podcasters, he never ever gives into that. I've never seen him get audience captured, and I'm
Yeah.
just like endlessly grateful to him for his insight and his honesty, and for being, he's like exactly like what journalists used to be, which is
Yeah.
speaking truth to power rather than using your, protecting power with the truth. All of which is to say, I thank you so much for having me. It's been
Of
an honor.
course.
I've
Anytime.
really enjoyed this conversation, and I love everything you guys are doing. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you. It was a blast. And please, anytime, please come back. So we'll see
Thank
you
you
next
so much.
time.
Okay,
All
see you
right.
soon.
Bye. All right, well, that was the great Batya Ungar-Sargon. Yeah, totally agree. Tim's not audience captured, to the dismay of the audience. I think like Tim will take a position that everyone in the audience absolutely hates, and he'll just like triple down. And I actually kind of love that because it's like master. It's not even rage. It's not rage baiting because he's like genuinely convinced of it. But I think it's great, and that's why people tune in for a lot of reasons because he's going to give you a take that like no one else in conservative media is going to be saying. Again, for better or for worse, I think it's great. I think it's what makes him so successful among other reasons. It's about just point. Yeah, he's old school. So new school in other ways, but old school in some ways. So I love it. With that, what are we? We got some housekeeping. We ran the ad. Producer Andrew. Andrew, where can people find you? A_Minx. Everyone needs to be following Andrew. Like literally everybody. Literally, like even the president. I don't understand what's going on here. But with that, you can follow me on X and Instagram at Real Tate Brown. And we will be back tonight for Timcast IRL at 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be a very exciting show tonight. Make sure you tune in. And with that, I'll catch you guys. I think tomorrow we'll do it the same thing. Maybe a mailbag. But I have an exciting guest I want to bring on. But in order to bring him on, we might have to go live at 11 instead of noon. So we're going to make sure the team's okay with that, if we can make that happen. If not, it might just be a mailbag situation. We'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be a great episode tomorrow. I think you guys will enjoy it very much. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, thank you.